thankful to you for this day, for the opportunity to have to serve this county. Blessing. Father, pray for all that honors you. Father, pray for you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll have roll call. Brandon Bias. Here. Robert Davis. Here. Plummer Tonsmeyer. Jason Padgett. Here. Michael Mullick. Here. Greg Seibert. Here. Bill Booyer. Here. Jamie Stradiger. Here. Mike McKenzie. Here. Rebecca Teal. Here. Diane Burnett. Here. Michael Fletcher. Here. Okay, we have a quorum. And let me begin by saying welcome to one of our newest members, Diane Burnett, who actually was on last month but couldn't be here. So welcome, Diane, to our Planning Commission, and good luck. All right, you each received a copy of the minutes from our work session, December 1st work session, and the December 1st regular meeting. If there are changes, please say so. If not, I'd entertain a motion that those be approved.
Seconded.
Mr. Davis made a motion that both minutes be approved. Mr. Seibert seconded the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Okay, we have one abstention. All right. Just a quick announcements about our upcoming meeting tonight. Hopefully you signed up as you came in if you want to speak to any of the items on the agenda. We will call each item up, open the public hearing. Our staff will make a report at the beginning. We'll have opportunity to ask questions of them. At the appropriate time, I will be given a list of those that have signed up for that particular item, and I will call on you. You will need to come to the podium in the front here, introduce yourself, and give us your address. And we would ask that you certainly ask the questions or make comments that you need. Try to keep those to a minimum of 3 minutes. We have quite a few folks here tonight and quite a few items on the agenda, so we're going to try to stay as close to that as possible. At some point, once everyone has had their opportunity to speak, I will close the public hearing. When I do so, this happens so often, people will raise their hand and want to speak again. Once I close the public hearing, it is closed. It'll be the opportunity for us then to discuss and ultimately make a decision up or down on the request. We would ask that you mute your phones so we don't have any interruptions for that. And I think I've covered most of them. So with that, we will go to our first case, which is case number PUD 22-10, the Underwood RV Park. I will ask if anyone on the Planning Commission needs to declare any prior communication on this item. There are none.
Mr. Chairman, if I can make a quick announcement on this case. We do have a number of senior members of the audience who have just asked that we all work together, and Mary, this would include you, to really speak close to your microphone so that way they can hear the whole discussion and conversation. I know they had issues hearing some of the case last time.
Okay. If I didn't say it, we're opening the public hearing on this item. So, Mary, are you okay? On this case?
Okay, small technical difficulty. Good evening, Commissioners. This is for PUD 22-10 is for Underwood RV Park. This was heard previously and was asked to be tabled until they had some time to address some of the issues that you had. I believe they have addressed the majority of those issues that is at their capacity. They have revised the site plan to 197 sites. Staff does recommend approval with no deficiencies or conditions. It is currently unzoned. They're proposing 197 sites. The internal streets will remain private. The surveyor record is Zeke Trice, also doing business as Rowe Engineering. We have Engineer Don Rowe here to answer any questions you have after this presentation. This is your vicinity map, your site map. This is the final site plan as proposed. This is a zoomed in, cropped to show, hopefully show some more detail. This is to your right is a typical lot layout. Indicated on your screen are the dumpster locations. That was a concern that we had last month, and they have shown those locations of those dumpsters. I did have a question about one of the dumpsters being located within the 30-foot setback, but that is a building setback, and the dumpster is allowed to be within that 30-foot setback. They've added some amenities. They've also shown the turning path as requested in the previous Planning Commission. The drainage narrative to the right has been updated with some of the changes. It has been reviewed and accepted by the Baldwin County Highway Department. They do propose detention areas that will be intended to decrease the anticipated runoff. Your utility letters. The traffic study. There was a traffic study that was prepared, and as shown here, they evaluated the need for right and left turn lanes into the development, but they proposed no turn lanes are warranted at full build-out by the year 2025. So at this time, there's no recommendation or plans for putting in any turn lanes. These are the concerns that we have from the November 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Staging area for check-in and check-out. This has been added. They've revised the entrance to show, to allow the check-in points to come in, and then also anybody exiting can go out a different location. They have provided the on-site dumpsters. They have provided the turning analysis for campers. As previously mentioned, they did provide a modified ingress-egress to allow for secondary access. Although not required, they did incorporate sidewalks within the development. They did update and modify the office and clubhouse to include bathhouse. And then, as previously stated, acceleration lane was one of the concerns, but as stated in the traffic study, it is not warranted. Staff does recommend approval. Upon approval, they will submit construction plans to Baldwin County Highway Department for review and approval of a subdivision permit. They will record the final site plan once the subdivision permit has been issued. They will obtain any necessary building permits. And then we make note in here that they acknowledge that approval of the final site plan is granted for 2 years, and item 2 and 3 above will need to occur within the 2-year approval period or submit an extension request for final site plan approval. I will welcome any questions you may have.
Okay, do any of the Planning Commission members have any questions for staff?
I have one question. What is this the what's the feeder school these children will go to out of this RV park? What's is that Magnolia?
I would assume it's Magnolia. I'm not 100% positive on that one.
And just a question, if there was any communications with them with that school
I believe
system.
we did. When we have our subdivision applications come in, we do submit to local and other outside agencies, and we have not received any response regarding this.
Any other questions for staff?
I have a question. We kind of talked about this through email. On the Baldwin County sewer system, our sewer services letter, it's dated March of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
And we talked about this being using a different plant than the one that they got their denial on. My understanding is that the one that they got the denial on needed the capacity, and until it gets approval, and I'm sure it's in the works to get that, they're sending that wastewater to other plants, so that makes them have a lower capacity level. I'd like to see a letter dated after the August 5th denial that shows, yes, we can still handle it since the denial.
We can request that.
We can? Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions?
Could we make a potential approval contingent upon receipt of that letter?
Yes, we can.
Okay. If no other questions for staff, then we'll call on those that have signed up. Sorry. Have you guys broke this down yet?
Is it not showing as filtered on your screen?
It shows everybody.
Shows them all.
We need to refresh it.
Thank you.
I think we're good to go.
Okay. All right. All right, I'll call, we have several that have signed up. I'll call on you. First is Larry Glessner. All right, do you want to say anything? Because if you do, you have to, okay. Don Rowe, do you want to speak to the?
Okay, Don Rowe with Rowe Engineering. I can't add anything to that. I think we covered every single one of the questions that were from last time. And if there are other questions, I'm here for that. And my owner here, Larry, is here for that as well.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for the engineer? Thank you, sir. Randy, I may mispronounce this, Siftak?
Good afternoon. My name is Randy Spitak. I live at 15771 Underwood Road. My neighbor is Neil Underwood, and then I'm immediately adjacent to this property. I've been in this for 13 years, and I've seen a property across the street with 153. The biggest concern I've got is the traffic. I kind of challenged that traffic study when you add now 197 units, and I have a question too, is it temporary or is it permanent RV?
Do we know? I'm not sure that it matters in one sense, but is this,
I would let the owner and or engineer answer that question.
okay, go ahead and give us the rest of your
Okay.
comments and we'll get an answer to that.
Okay, obviously I just found out who the developer is. Is he out of Kernersville, North Carolina, or does he reside here? Because I could find nothing on the internet about this company.
Okay,
And then the last question is noise complaint, obviously.
is what now?
Noise complaint, you know, given that we're in an unincorporated, that means we only get Baldwin County Sheriff, and sometimes they'll respond, sometimes they won't. I know we just had a vote, and I know it was voted down, but that still shouldn't alleviate noise complaints after 10 o'clock. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Okay. Marshall Lehman? Lorraine Rogers?
Good afternoon. My name is Lorraine Rogers. I live at 14347 Norris Lane. My family, from grandparents to parents, aunts and uncles, cousins, have owned or currently own over the years approximately 1,000 plus acres of land along Underwood Road since 1932. I'm opposed to the plans of the Underwood RV Park. I would like to reject this application for the Underwood RV Park. Here are a few of my reasons for this proposal should be rejected. The Underwood RV Park will be located at Underwood Road at Norris Lane, between County Road 55 and 49. I believe that the RV park would have a negative impact and consequences greatly decrease the property value of our properties on and near Underwood Road. Underwood Road is equipped to handle is not equipped to handle the amount of traffic that is proposed. There's large ditches located on both sides of the street. North side of the road is about 2 foot wide. Norris Lane has a drop-off on both west and east side of Norris Lane, which will consist of the following drop-off of about 2 to 6 feet wide with a 2 to 4 foot depth drop-off, and same for the other side of the street. There's also a large culvert on the southeast side of the street that has substantial overflow during storms. I invite the commissioners here to come visit this stretch of Underwood Road during peak traffic time. Not to mention the added traffic and the RV park, other developments coming to this area, such as Tealwood Community, which is currently going to be at on Underwood Road near between 49 and 9. There are no turning lanes to accommodate large travel trailers for the RV park. I would hope that one of you has a truck or travel trailer that you could use to demonstrate purposes. If not, I would be happy to allow you to use my travel trailer, which is small in comparison to the fifth wheels that would probably be families would be using pulling in there. In order to accommodate the guests of this RV park for safety purposes of the park users and residents, Underwood Road, I would think that they would need or require an entrance and exit into the park, that they should have a turning lane from each direction into the park. The last time this case was before you, the applicant and staff made reference that this RV park was being used for temporary visitors to our county, mostly for recreational purposes, and that the park users would not have a big impact or interfere with residents' daily lives, as their schedules would be quite different from those on a regular work schedule. I find this not to be true. The new families would greatly impact traffic and other resources and residents on Underwood Road, where they are permanent residents or just vacationing families, as we have a development, Magnolia Shores, which has 100+ single-family residents. At peak traffic times, we share the road with school buses, tractors, combines, dump trucks, and several other vehicles. Not to mention added traffic of the RV park and other developments coming to this area, such as traffic of an RV park and other developments of Tealwood. Currently on Underwood Road, there is no turning lanes that would accommodate a large travel trailers or small travel trailers. With current traffic and dump trucks and going to the county road for the dirt quarry, this would be a very large impact on them turning right there because they turn off of Norris Lane. Mr. Rowe is also affiliated with or manages with Magnolia Farms RV Park, located at 13381 Lipscomb Road, Foley, Alabama, less than 3 miles away. These two parks seem to have both temporary and permanent residents, mostly long-term, living in these parks. Most appear to be living there long-term basis, as they have storage, ramps, decks, and adjacent to their travel trailers. The occupants of the new RV park would have an impact on the traffic and other resources of Underwood Road. Which laws or county ordinances would prevent this new RV park from becoming like Magnolia Farms RV Park and other RV parks in the area, consisting of permanent residents rather than just visitors on vacation? I think that they were probably trying to deceive the commissioners into believing that they were going to cater to visitors on vacation instead of becoming an RV park for permanent residents, which is a whole lot different type of park and user than they are proposing. We believe, or we will be living there. I believe that the RV spaces that will be filled with other travel trailers and permanent residents to Baldwin County, and not just travel trailers for families on vacation. In addition, Underwood RV Park would affect the current residents of Underwood Road. I would like to submit the following documents that I was able to locate on the website of tealwood.net. There is a 202-acre proposed development that is located 1.5 to 2 miles away from Underwood Park called Tealwood by H.V. Hood Properties, which will be located on Underwood Road between County 9 and County 49. This will consist of 600 new single-family residential homes with several amenities such as pools, tennis courts, multi-use clubhouses. This, along with new RV park, would also affect the current residents and the traffic on Underwood Road. Again, I would like to reject this application for the Underwood RV Park. I greatly appreciate your time and attention given to this matter. Thank you for listening to my concerns. And could you please reject the application to the Underwood RV Park? Thank you.
Okay. Janice Michaels?
Hi, my name is Janice Michaels, and I live at 14230 Spearfish Drive in the Magnolia Shore subdivision. I would like to agree with the lady that was just up here. It's a new subdivision, and this RV park is almost directly across the street. I do have safety concerns with traffic, property value of our home, and safety for children. There's school buses that come to the road. Parents park their cars in the front of the road to pick up their children, and it's a narrow 2-lane road. And I just feel that I'm opposed to it for this location. And also, like she said, the new subdivision coming in right down the road, it's going to be 4 times the size of our subdivision, and it's really going to affect the traffic. And so for these reasons, I stand opposed. Thank you.
Okay. I have a few more to speak, and I'm going to ask if it's already been said, you don't need to repeat it. Just let us know that your comments have already been addressed. Fred Troike? Okay. Marla Klumpmeyer? Okay. Kenneth Klumpmeyer? I agree. Robert Horton? Janice McConnell?
That's a different case, too.
Oh, sorry, that's another case. It's got attached on here. All right, was there anybody else that wanted to speak that didn't sign up on this particular case? Yes, sir, you want to? Yes, sir. As the owner, I certainly welcome you to come up and speak to any of this.
I'm Larry Glissner, Kernersville, North Carolina. I am the owner of the property. Address a few of the comments that folks have made. I do own Magnolia Farms RV Park, and we rent to no one longer than 30 days at a time. There's people in the subdivision right down the street there that stayed at Magnolia Farms RV Park while they were finding the house. I think they lived there 2 or 3 months. Yeah, some of these places are stopping off points besides vacation spots. But we don't give anybody, a year lease or a 6-month lease. It's 30 days. If you like the fishing, you like the environment, and you decide to stay another 30 days, you're more than welcome. But no long-term leases. On the traffic thing, yeah, I know it's 197 spots. There won't be 197 people, coming in there in one day. If I had a traffic concern, I'd be more concerned about the trash trucks that run up and down there on a much regular basis than people are going to be on the RV park. I understand people's concerns, but, yeah, I sit here and I scratch my head. It's okay to build a 600-unit housing development, but we're dead set against a 197-lot RV park. You know, there's people that want to live in these things. There's people who want to come down here and vacation and spend their money. We're going to provide a place for them.
Okay. All right, any questions for the owner?
And Mr. Chairman, because I think some of that may have been difficult to hear, I'm just going to summarize some of the comments is that they do issue leases for 6 months to a year, or that has been done.
No, 30 days.
30 days is your maximum?
We have some people come in for, just the other day, somebody came in for 2 days. But we issue nobody any longer than 30 days. But we renew, but nobody comes in with a year lease.
Okay, but someone may continuously stay potentially through renewing up to a year or even longer potentially.
Yeah, I don't think we ever had that, but yeah, I mean, this time of year, you got people coming from Minnesota.
And I'm not trying to debate with you, I just want to make sure everybody heard that. And the reality is this is an unzoned area. We cannot regulate how long they stay in an RV in an unzoned area. And so, but I just wanted to make sure everybody heard that so there wasn't confusion later.
It's no more than 30 days at a time.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And let me just say, for those of you that came from the public to speak, Matthew just said, this is an unzoned area, and this is loud. And that doesn't mean we're not concerned about safety issues. That's why they were required to get a traffic study. That traffic study was done. It's been approved by engineering department. Drainage has already been looked at. Is that true, Matthew? Drainage has already been addressed. So they have addressed the issues. In fact, this is our second hearing on this. This planning commission had concerns. They've addressed all those concerns. So this has had quite a bit of review on it. All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. Does anybody have any?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one
anything?
comment to make.
Okay.
I want to clarify something I mentioned earlier. Due to the fact that these were not considered permanent residents, the school board was not notified on this one. To answer the question on the feeder pattern, Magnolia Springs would be the elementary and Foley Middle and High School.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Any questions by the planning commission before we?
I have just one question for Matthew. Is District 14 in the process of becoming zoned or putting on the ballot?
That's a great question. There are some citizens in this area that are currently collecting signatures to pursue zoning. I actually happened to be communicating with them yesterday. They said they've obtained about 50% of the required signatures, but they did tell me that it seems like interest is waning and they're not sure they're going to get enough signatures for it to go to a vote for zoning. And so that's where things stand.
Okay.
And how would that be different if they were zoned for this?
So if there was zoning, likely this piece of property would be zoned rural agriculture, and they would have to get it rezoned to RV1 or RV2 or B4 to put an RV park here, which would be difficult to do if the property surrounding this was zoned RA. So likely this development would be much more difficult to have occur if this was a zoned area.
Matthew, if, based on Jamie's bringing up getting a new letter from the sewer service, if we place that as a contingency and for whatever reason that letter does not show up, does that immediately make the application incomplete or not in compliance, given that there's a letter that's been submitted already?
So what my recommendation is when you make the motion is that you make it contingent on them providing this letter within 30 days. It's 30 days what we normally do. That meets the requirements of the subdivision regulations. And if they don't, that it's a denial. And so include that in your thing so they'll have 30 days to get it, otherwise it's automatically reverts to a denial.
And I have one more question. On the east side, you know, it looks like we have maybe natural screening on the west on the north, there's no landscape planting on the east side, it says common area, is that correct? And my question is, would it be appropriate to request maybe a double row of 6-foot evergreens to be planted on that east side to, help put some buffer between this RV park and the neighbors? Would that be a reasonable request?
So all I would say there is that is not something we can request, or we can require. You're welcome to have the owner come back up here and see if he's willing to just voluntarily do that, but we would not be able to make our decision based on his unwillingness to do something like that.
Yeah, because it's under the subdivision request, there's rules about buffers and landscaping and things like that, and as long as he's met those requirements that the planning department has reviewed and everything, we can't add any additional requirements as a condition of approval of a subdivision request.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, just one quick question. The 4 dumpsters that are here, are those the only, I can't tell from the layout here, if they are the only 4 dumpsters that are there to serve 200 or 197 units, is that correct? Or am I just not able to see them in my old age?
That's the only dumpsters that have been provided, and I'm not sure what regulates the number of dumpsters versus the number of units that are in place. You're welcome to direct that question to the engineer and see if he has a better response.
What we base that on, the park I have now has 50 lots, and we have 1 dumpster that's dumped twice a week. So with the 200, we feel that's adequate.
What would you, how would you, on a percentage basis, say that you have 30-day or semi-permanent residents versus transient residents in your current lot that would help base that?
I'm not avoiding your question. I'm thinking I want to give you a good answer. I would say probably 40%. Maybe they're more than the 30 days. But when you have people come from Minnesota, Wisconsin to spend the winter in warmer climates, they're going to stay longer. So I mean, we just had some check in recently, and they're talking about staying 3 months. I mean, they may not. They may say, I'm going to South Florida. It's a little bit warmer down there or something. But that's probably the best answer I can give you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? At this time, I want to entertain a motion.
I make a motion we approve Underwood RV Park contingent on them receiving updated sewer service letter from their sewer provider within 30 days.
All right. Mr. Cybers made the motion that it be approved with the condition. Mr. Padgett has seconded the motion. Are there any questions or comments on the motion?
The motion also includes 1 through 4 on the screen. Right?
You're going to include staff?
Yes.
Conditions?
Yes.
Okay. You're good with that?
And Mr. Chairman, before you vote, I just want to say one more time on behalf of the county commission, who we work for as staff, is that we don't adore these RV parks coming in this way. We know that the public is concerned about them, but without zoning, there's not much we can do to regulate them in the unzoned areas. And I know we've said that a bunch of times, but I don't want them folks here to think we're not concerned about it. It's just we don't have the legal tool to do anything further than what we've done here today.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. Any other questions, comments on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, wasn't the motion to include a statement that if that letter is not furnished within 30 days, the application is immediately denied?
I was comfortable that that was assumed from the motion based on our conversation, and that's a good point, Buford.
I'm fine with adding that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick comment. I think we need to include all utility providers, not just the sewer provider.
Do you have the other utility providers' letters?
They're there.
They're there. The only question was the fact that the letter that was provided by Baldwin County Sewer was dated prior to when they were asked to modify the Fort Morgan plant. So if I need to request it for all the other utilities, I would be happy to reach out for that, but I thought the only needed utility letter was for the sewer.
Okay.
I'm fine with just leaving it sewer.
All right, so I have a motion on the floor then that this be approved condition on the staff conditions and adding the one condition for a letter from the sewer company within 30 days or it'll be denied. Correct?
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion's approved.
Mr. Chairman, ready to recuse myself from the next case.
Okay. At this time, we'll open a public hearing for case number PUD 22-18, Vijar RV Park. Does anybody need to clear any prior communication on this item? Mr. Bias has recused himself.
It's just in the folder again.
Ms. Mitchell?
All right, are we ready to clear prior communication? Okay, so this is another PUD request for an RV park, a Vijar RV Park, and it was previously known as the Brinks Willis RV Park, but they changed the name because we had recently approved a Brinks Willis Mobile Home Park. So to avoid confusion, this is their new name. This is a 95-unit park and is recommendation approval with conditions, and it is in Planning District 30. And as you can see, it is actually in Foley. Let me go back to this one. It's in Foley, but Foley does not review RV parks, and that's why we were reviewing it and hearing it here. It is currently zoned RV1 and B4. All roads will remain private. They have submitted a traffic study, and drainage improvements have been approved by the Baldwin County Highway Department. So this is a close-up. This is the vicinity map, and again, you can see it's surrounded by Foley city limits. And here is the zoning map, so you can see that it is zoned appropriately for the use. Here are the utility letters. And this one, they have addressed some fire protection concerns by the city of Foley. They did a flow test, and those are found to be adequate for fire protection. They have installed a boulevard entrance, and so even though there's only room for one entrance, because it has two lanes, it essentially functions as two. Like if one were to be blocked, you have an alternative. There were no wetlands on the subject property, and you can see there are some in the surrounding area. And here is the drainage plan that was submitted and approved by the Highway Department. You can see there's some proposed detention ponds. The traffic study did, for this one, recommend some improvements to the Foley Beach Express. The Highway Department requested that they modify the existing turn lane to accommodate the RVs, and they also have to widen the road to 24 feet wide and 300 feet in either direction of the entrance. That is a subdivision requirement. And just to address some of the issues that came from the earlier one, this one they did show the dumpster locations. There are several amenities, pool, pavilion, clubhouse. And just to address the question of education, we have not, whenever we have a subdivision of 50 more units, we do automatically notify the Board of Education. But with RV parks, we have not been, because there was this assumption that it was temporary
And usually the demographics in RV parks, they do tend to be older, but we can certainly revisit this and start sending notifications if you feel that that is necessary. That's something that we can to rethink. So they have not been notified in this case, and they are all zoned in Foley School, so this area would be. So we are recommending approval with the following conditions. This one, because it is zoned, it will also require a CSP approval. That's a zoning process, and that has to be done within 2 years of the approval for the PUD or the PUD, the widening of the road that I mentioned, and then the improvements on the Foley Beach Expressway for the turn lanes.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
I have one question. We're in is this one is zoned versus the last one unzoned? My question is there any, that being said, do we have any landscape requirements to help shield this development in place?
This one, there were no landscape buffers required, because you're right, sometimes there are, because it's not surrounded by residential. Normally, the landscape buffers are required for residential, but because of the things that are immediately adjacent, the agricultural use, those do not require buffers.
Are these not houses or homes on the east side of the subject property?
It's, the purple is business, so if it's surrounded by something that's either zoned or used by residential, a buffer is required. In this case, there was not one.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. All right, I have one signed up, Melissa Curry.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission. I'm Melissa Curry with Goodwood Mills in Kaywood on behalf of the developer who is our client. I'm here to answer any questions, but I would like to make just a couple of clarifications. First, clarification would be that the traffic impact study did not recommend the improvements on Foley Beach Express. As a matter of fact, the traffic engineer does not feel that they are warranted, and that was the comment was issued from the Highway Department in the review. Just want to make a little clarification about that. The traffic engineer is on record of saying that he did not feel that those were warranted. And then the second thing where there was a question about the adjoining use on the east side is mini warehouse. That is the zone of B4. So there are no residential uses in the vicinity of this site. There are other RV parks in this area, so this is a very appropriate use for this particular piece of property located in between the Foley Beach Express to the east and Highway 59 to the west, and its location sort of in the southerly part of the county, closer to the beach.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Curry. Anybody have any questions for the applicant's representative here? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's all I had signed up. Is there anyone that did not sign up that would like to speak? Okay. I'll close the public hearing. Ms. Mitchell, do you have any other comments?
I did. I just forgot to mention this one has the general requirements, just like Mary showed, that are general to all PUDs. So that's the second page. So the first page, these are the specific to this case, and the second were the general, that are more procedural.
Okay. All right. Any questions, comments on this before we make a motion? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this subject to the recommendations, the staff recommendations for specific conditions as well as the general conditions.
Okay, Mr. Williams made a motion to approve subject staff conditions.
Seconded.
Mr. Seibert seconded the motion. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. All right. There he is. At this time, we'll open the public hearing for case number SC 22-50, Swift Lillian subdivision. Does anybody need to clear any prior communication on this item? Ms. Mitchell, it's yours.
All right, this one is a two-lot residential subdivision. This one is in Plan District 22, and it is zoned B4 currently. There are two proposed lots. Traffic study is not required because the number of lots. A drainage narrative has been submitted and approved, and there will be no new streets at this point. And this is to show you where it's located. And here's a blow-up so you can see more clearly the two lots involved. So you can see there's a smaller one by the road, and then this is on Highway 98. Here's the vicinity map, the aerial map, and the zoning map. So you can see this one also surrounded by agricultural and business currently, with some residential nearby. Here are the utility letters. And we received several emails today. People were concerned about buffers for this one as well. It is zoned B4, but the request was a residential subdivision. And so if you look, I put the table, this is from the zoning ordinance. For single and two-family residential use, there are no borders required. So there, at this point, there are no borders, or buffers. If they are to propose a different zoning or use in the future, then that might require a buffer. But at this point, it does not, except the only buffer at this point, because it is on a major arterial, there's a 25-foot screening buffer, and in this, it needs to be moved so it's outside the highway construction setback, and we will address that before the final plat is signed. But that's not a landscape buffer, it's a screening buffer that just, it provides an additional buffer if the highway were to be widened. And so wetlands, there were no wetlands identified, and Ashley Campbell, our resource planner, went out and checked it herself just to make sure that she verified the report. So we recommend approval, subject to compliance with Baldwin County subdivision regulations, and the staff will grant administrative final approval. And this, again, this is more of an administrative thing. The final plat will be circulated for signatures and recorded within 90 days of approval.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Anybody have any questions for staff? Okay. David Deal? Okay.
Chairman, Commissioners, this is just a two-lot subdivision. It's pretty straightforward. It's B4 zoning. That's about all I got. And if anybody's got any questions, we'll be willing to answer them.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
It's B4, but it's going to be used for subdivision?
At this time, it's B4. That's what we're doing, is we're submitting a two-lot subdivision for B4. If we do decide to go forward with the subdivision, we'd have to resubmit another application.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Tracy Campbell or Gamble?
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak. My sign-up sheet was for approval of this. My understanding is that the zoning is correct for the application, and so therefore you pretty much have to approve it. I would like to ask if the applicant would explain a little further what the plans might be for a subdivision. And I would also ask the applicant if they would voluntarily show goodwill to our community by providing some landscape buffers along the perimeter.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go through the public hearing. Jeannie Raven.
Yeah, my basic question was the dividing off of the two off of the other one for what's going to be done in the future also, because this 98 and 91 connection right here on the main road, the reason the two is divided off, I'm sure 2.38, is to keep no entrance and out of there from the state having to come in and have to deal with that blinking light that's already had 6 accidents this year at it because of the subdivisions across the road. So my question will be later on also with all of these things that were approved for these lots in particular, which included going to the septic system down in down there off of Paradito. I forget the name of the little subdivision there. It is pretty much at capacity. Our electricity grid went out for 4,900 people for 7 hours because there's not enough electricity over there for the people in that area. And that bummed both roads, 98, 91, the whole way. So that would have to be looked at later. It's just basically, I know they're going to go through with the 2 here. It's what would like to be known what's going to happen when they do all the others, because it's a traffic hazard.
Okay.
Thank you.
My answer to that is you're going to find out when we find out.
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's what I figured too, so I figured it's going to get approved. So
whenever they move forward to do something that we require, depending on what they do, to resubmit. So tonight it's just a 2-lot subdivision. And
I just kind of wanted them to know that everybody's going to ask these questions. It's going to be pretty brutal.
All right. Janine Fowler? Okay, thank you. I had no one else. Is there anyone that I missed? All right. I'll close the public hearing. Ms. Mitchell, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Any questions, comments by Planning Commission? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve subject to staff condition.
Okay. Mr. Bice has made a motion to approve. That second? Second. Mr. Davis seconded the motion. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Open the public hearing now for case number SC 22-52, Ziegler Acres. Does anybody need to declare any prior communication on this item? Ms. Booth?
Okay, this is for a 2-lot subdivision. It is located in Lillian, Planning District 22. It is zoned RA. As mentioned, it's a 2-lot subdivision, and staff does recommend approval with no deficiencies or conditions. The proposed development is just split into 2 different lots. They do meet subdivision regulations and zoning ordinance. There are wetlands that are potential wetlands that are on site, but they have been delineated, have been identified as non-jurisdictional, and they have been reflected on the plat. This is your plat layout. An up-close vicinity map, site map. A drainage narrative was reviewed and accepted by the Baldwin County Highway Department. The proposed division of this property will not create significant change in post-development runoff and will not require any drainage improvements. Previously mentioned, the wetland scientist has reviewed the wetlands that are on site and has indicated that they are isolated and non-jurisdictional. There are no wetlands that are proposed to be filled. A 30-foot wetland building setback and a 15-foot natural buffer have been reflected on the plat. These are your utility letters. There's going to be on-site wells, so we have power, and they are exempt from Baldwin County Health Department. So staff does recommend approval, no conditions, and we will grant final plat approval upon your recommendation for approval, and then they have to circulate the plat for signatures and record it within 90 days of approval. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Ms. Booth. All right, I have several signed up for this item. Randall Tillman.
I'm with David Lowery Survey, and I'm here on behalf of the owner and answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the owner's representative? Okay. Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Chase Connell.
My name's Chase Cannell, 29486 Gardner Road. We're part of the adjacent property. A couple questions and concerns. Start with concerns. Power issues. We have power issues now where property we're at. If they're bringing in subdivisions, what's going to be done there? And then second issue would be home value. We originally bought this property about 6 years ago, and we bought it to get away from subdivisions, so don't want to bring that out to where we're at. My next question would be for them is also I know it's broken into 2 sections, and for subdivision, how many homes will be here? How many home subdivision would this be? So those are my questions I had.
Okay. Well, we're really here tonight only to address just the 2-lot subdivision, and what will...
Yep. Really, this is, a step-by-step basis. If it ever goes any further, there'll still be public notice again. It'll be put on the agenda, and you'll know, what the next step is. But right now, the step is just to subdivide this into 2, a 10-acre and a 20-acre approximately thing. So this is not to allow for further subdivision of the property, just the subdivision that they requested of those 2. If they go take it another step with either one of those parcels, they're going to start the process all over again, and the public notice will also be started all over again.
Yeah. I know you're concerned most of the time when you see project, it looks like they're setting up something, and they may be, but tonight we're only looking at this 2-lot subdivision. We're not looking at what can be down the road. They'll have to resubmit for that. So thank you, Aaron, for that. All right, Janice McConnell.
This is located in Lillian. It's located in Alberta. I don't know if that makes any difference.
We know where it's at, so.
I do too. I live right next door, and it is a concern. Most of the families out there have been there 35 or 40 years, and most of us are on 40 acres at least, and appreciate our privacy and what we've established. And this will definitely make a difference in the place that we live and the surrounding area, the traffic.
Okay, you do understand that these are just 2 lots. There's a 15-acre lot and a 23-acre lot.
Yeah, and another concern that I had is that the posted sign for this meeting was posted on the south end, which is Comstock Road, but not on the north end, which is Gardner Road. And Comstock Road has very little traffic, very few people use that road, and I wondered why it wasn't posted on the north end on Gardner Road, where there's a lot more traffic and a lot more people who live there.
I can't answer that one.
Well, it just didn't seem right to me.
Yeah, all I can say is that's certainly not intentional. We have to post a sign, and we send our code enforcement team out to do that, and they put it on the road that they first come to that it fronts. But I think the important thing here is for everybody to understand it almost seems like people think this is a big residential subdivision. This is someone dividing 50-something acres or so into 2 huge lots where they can put a maximum of 2 houses on each lot. So we're going from maybe 1 or 2 houses now to 4 houses. So this is not a big subdivision that we would think of. Now, I don't know what could come down the road in another application, but it would be a whole new application, whole new process at that point. So just to make sure we understand that.
Yeah, I do understand that, but the process seems to be, well, I just feel like a lot of people weren't informed without that sign on Gardner Road.
And Brandon just brought up a good point. Their address is Comstock Road. That was issued, so he put it on the road where the address was issued to the county. So, all right, anything else? All right. Anthony Borrow.
Yes, I'm Anthony Boris, and reason I'm basically up here is we have a flooding problem as it is. Even 2 more houses is going to add to a flooding problem, more so than it is now. The county has spent, I don't know how many thousands of dollars right down the road on Boris Road, south of this area, off of Comstock, to build a huge retaining pond for 5 houses. What they have done for us is nothing. All they do is keep draining water from Gardner Road back across my property, which is almost impossible to farm now because it's washed out 90% of the time. The road in front of my place stays underwater, and every time it rains, anybody's got a four-wheel truck comes splashing through it. Okay, that's water problem. Jan McConnell here's got an airfield over there that it's private, but people fly in and out. Next thing you're going to know, it's going to be like in Gulf Shores where people building next to the airfield. They don't want the airfield anymore. They're taking our rights away because we live there, but they're moving in. It's just not right what you people are doing to put houses everywhere else. We already have a nursery on the south side of Comstock, having semis come in at all hours of the night, traffic coming through there like, nope, we don't have police protection out there that does anything about the speeders going up and down the road, and we gonna add more houses to it? I don't think that's right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all I had signed up. Anybody else that did not sign up on this item that need to speak on it? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Ms. Booth, you need to add anything?
I have nothing further.
All right, any other questions or comments by the Planning Commission members before we have a motion? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that I make a motion to approve this case, subject to staff contingencies, conditions.
Mr. Bice has made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Mr. Cybert seconded the motion. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We'll open a public hearing now for case SPP 22-31, South Bend Village, phases 3 and 4. Does anyone need to declare any prior communication on this item? Okay, Ms. Mitchell.
This is a preliminary plat approval for South Bend Village phases 3 and 4, 165 lot subdivision. This is in Planning District 14, where citizens have not implemented zoning. There are 165 lots proposed on approximately 61 acres. The smallest lot is 7,600 square feet, and the largest is 17,000. There will be public streets installed. A traffic study was done as part of phases 1 and 2, and then updated for phases 3 and 4, and there was a drainage narrative submitted and approved. So this is a close-up, and it's tilted north is to the south, or I'm sorry, north is to the side, so that you can see all the lots at once. So we did notify schools in this case because of the number of lots requested, and we have not heard a response back from them. The drainage narrative, there have been improvements recommended, and this involves 3 more detention ponds in addition to the ones that are part of phases 1 and 2. Traffic study was reviewed and accepted by the Highway Department, and improvements have been recommended, and there are 3 different turn lanes that are part of this study, and they go into different phases. The first was approved under phases 1 and 2, and there's another one after phase 4. So this will be a gradual improvements along Highway 181. The utilities are not currently adequate, so as we saw with phases 1 and 2, they will have to upgrade the water lines and the sewer lines, and the developer owners will be responsible for paying for those infrastructure improvements. Fire protection, this also goes along with the water improvements. So the flow tests have been conducted, and the water improvements will include 12-inch main and then 10 and 6-inch mains. So it will connect along Highway 181. Wetland report found one isolated pocket of non-jurisdictional wetlands. We are recommending approval, subject to compliance with subdivision regulations, and it's implied that those improvements for the subdivision permit and the construction review will include the traffic, water, and sewer improvements that have been recommended. And those will be installed within 2 years of preliminary plat approval unless granted an extension.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
I have a few questions. On the wetlands area, I know they're non-jurisdictional. Can you explain how they're evaluated differently? I know Ashley's not here.
Yeah, she's not here. Non-jurisdictional generally means that they don't flow into something else, something that is considered a jurisdictional stream or wetland. So they're isolated pockets. In a lot of cases, it's based on hydric soils, like a Grady pond. And usually when you have a case like this where it's isolated, they can be filled if they offset the drainage that this provides somewhere else, and that's why you'll notice that the ponds are not located in the same place. So this would be filled, and there'll be lots there, but then there'll be drainage ponds in other portions of the subdivision.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Yes. Sorry. Oops, sorry.
Was that a yes? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I think you answered that now. The drainage improvements are being addressed.
Yes.
And so are the wetlands.
Well, because they're non-jurisdictional, those don't have to be preserved and buffered. Those can be filled, and like I said, if it is filled, that drainage just has to be replaced somewhere else nearby. It captures whatever was naturally going there.
Okay. And do they have the Army Corps of Engineer permit?
If they're non-jurisdictional, those are not required.
Doesn't require that. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Kevin Carney.
I'm here to represent my father-in-law, my property owners.
Okay. Mr. Deal, looks like you have a staff here tonight, so I'll let you choose who needs to speak. If all of you need to speak, that's fine. Okay? So just be clear for Planning Commission, the representative has his engineering staff here if you have any questions related to that. All right, we'll go to a couple that are in opposition. Carl Pizzotti.
I'm here with I'm Carl Wayne Pizzotti. I'm here to also speak for my father, Carl Pizzotti, who's the actual owner. I live on the property that is adjacent to, actually surrounds my property on 3 sides.
Okay.
It's 14651 Frigo Lane. The 3 and 4 phase, the south and the west side of this property adjoins my property. The retention ponds that they are putting in, when we get the large rain, will definitely, everything from this property drains through mine, right through the center. The little notch out of the corner is mine. That's 20 acres. That property also drains all the way into Fish River. So during construction of this project of 3 and 4, along with the other subject properties of subdivisions that are going in next door. During construction, the silt fences that they're going to put up are not going to be adequate to protect the environment and drain off and from the sediment. Okay, with that being said, the retention ponds, when they put them in, when they fill up, guess where they flow? Downhill through my property. So that being said, I'm against that. Also, the way this property is set up allows for the cutoff by construction or other means of my only access to my property. and that means legal issues along with this. So that's where another big concern.
How do you access your, I'm sorry, how do you access your property now?
Access from Frigo Lane, which comes from County Road 24, straight down the north-south line of the west side. And then I go across the north portion of that property, which is the top line. That is the easement that I have to the property there, and then onto that 20 acres on that little corner.
Okay.
So that is also part of this, where, you know, through eminent domain is where I see this potentially going, making my property and my dad's property virtually at the will of the developer. That I know that the developer is in process. I know this is an uncle that has sold the property and is wanting his money because of retirement. I understand that completely, but the destruction of the property as far as for public housing is one thing. Destruction of my property and basically the legal theft of my property by rendering it useless is not acceptable. Okay, with that being said, also on this site, there is a capped gas well, oil well, on this property that not once has been brought up in any one of the designs or anything else. This well was drilled. The permits were issued in on June 25th, 1993, for drilling this well. A permit for hydrogen sulfide gas permit was also issued on June 23rd of 1993. As you know or don't know, hydrogen sulfide is a poisonous gas that is sightless, which will kill instantly. It's worse than chlorine gas. This well was drilled. The start date was 12/10 of 93, and the full records are all on the Alabama State Oil and Gas Board site. It was started, the start date for the drill was 12/10 of 93. There's full records on the site. The well was drilled 20,136 feet and then recapped and finished on January 10th of 1994. This cap is 10 foot below the ground level. There is exact location of this, which is actually right in the center of phase 3, or actually kind of almost right in the cul-de-sac of where that drawing is at. There are federal regulations that are in play. I don't have those numbers, but I know they're there for developing around a capped or inactive gas or oil well. And my question is, has this been addressed? I have a feeling it has not. There are also, for situations like this, the disturbance of the well casing or the cap. What means are they going to do to take care of this, or is it just going to be cut off, buried deeper, and just make it disappear? Has the Oil and Gas Board, ADM, EPA, or any regulations, inspections, or permits in place to develop this property? If this property, if they just cut this well off, or they say they decide they just want to go ahead and start construction, they knock the cap off this, the 10-foot concrete cap that's on top of this casing, and all of a sudden 60 acres of prime Baldwin County land is vaporized from a natural gas leak, or a 5-mile square radius of people are evacuated due to hydrogen sulfide gas being blown in one direction or the other, with potential deaths in mind. Or are they just going to build over this and make it disappear, and then, you know,
We're going to get an answer to that, so you can, I get your point.
Okay. Anyway, so
We're going to
you got my point.
We're going.
Yeah. And I live right next door to it. I know exactly where it's at. It's all the public record.
Okay.
So on this, I am highly opposed to this because, one, the destruction of my property due to the first part is the construction. The second part, the remedial runoff from all the lots goes across my property. Thank you.
All right. Ronald Avery?
I'm Ronald Avery. I'm also a neighbor of Mr. Pizzotti. I'm at 14902 Frago Lane, which is adjacent. I'm a little bit bewildered about what the plat that the county sent me as to what was being developed and what you're showing on the lots. If I'm understanding this right, this is going to be the lot that's going to be next to Pizzotti, but below, you look at the yellow up there where it goes all the way up. That's not County 24 at the top of it, is it?
This is 24 here.
That's 24. Okay, so my property is going to be two of the lots that are off of 24 on Frago Lane. So this is going to be a little bit offset of that. In fact, directly straight up. As he said, in the lot next to us, if you look at the yellow outline, it's going to be the lot that's to your upper left. That is a major flood zone that is reflected on this photo, but it's not accurate. It's actually a little further north than that. And that water, when it rains, is a major flood issue in that it floods my second property almost completely. It floods the property below it almost completely. And he's taken steps to try to divert the water around his property, but it's still flooding. It was to such a degree that another property owner bought land further east towards the river, and they put in a gravel access road, and the first heavy rain we had washed it away. So I am granting these families access to my second piece of property that has a concrete road on it, so they can get in and out of their own properties, including that one. But my biggest concern with this property is what Mr. Pizzotti's already mentioned, was the wellhead. I know that can be an environmental disaster waiting to happen, but more importantly is infrastructure. The traffic through this area now is horrendous, and we already got a subdivision just north of county, or excuse me, 27 Dirt. They're putting in a big subdivision there. So that is going to really impact the infrastructure as far as getting in and out, and especially during the hurricane season when we may have to evacuate this area. The other concern I had was exactly where the access to this subdivision is going to be off of. When I came here, it looks like it's coming off of Sherwood Highlands.
No, sir, phases 1 and 2 over here off of 181, so it'll
Okay, so
extend to
there's going to
181.
be no access through Frago Lane?
No, sir.
Okay, because that is a private road. Okay, that's all I have, sir.
Okay. That's all I had signed up. Was there anybody else that did not sign up that wishes to speak to this? Okay. Mr. Deal, I'm going to ask somebody from your group to come up to address a couple of comments, the access to the site and also the capped oil well. I will address drainage, just so that you folks know they have already started the process. They were required to submit a summary for that, and the engineering department has looked at it, and so far has agreed to it. They will have to do detailed drainage plans if this does move forward, and it'll get much more scrutiny then. Mr. Deal, a couple items there. Would you be willing to or be able to address?
Absolutely. David Deal, SE Civil. Concerning the easement in the driveway to Mr. Pizzotti's property, we're aware he has an easement that encumbers this property. We've stayed completely off of it. And besides his, whatever that is, 30 or 40 foot easement, we've got another 15 or 20 feet before we get to the back of a lot. So we are aware of that, and we've stayed out of it. I'll let an engineer address the drainage. Concerning the claim that there's a well on the property, we can investigate. We did have a phase 1 performed, which they do. They're supposed to go through those oil and gas records and look for those things as part of a phase 1. Nothing showed up, so we're unaware of that, but we will definitely investigate, take whatever.
So this was news to you tonight, too?
News to me.
Okay.
And I'll let is there anything else besides the drainage?
Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Deal?
The traffic study, was that a new one or was that one for the existing phases?
New one.
New
Staff,
one.
don't worry, staff got that handled. They're really thorough.
Okay.
They made us revise it and add the new phases.
Oops, it's not the right one. Yeah, but they did, we required a new one after phases 1 and 2. So this is done in November 2nd. So this was after the first 2 phases were approved to accommodate the second 2 phases.
Yes. And those traffic studies do take into considerations other subdivisions in the area. So somebody was talking about that earlier. They don't just take this site. They do look at a broader area and address the traffic conditions that would go along with this site too. All right, any other questions? Ms. Burnett?
Hello.
Hey.
I'm looking at the plat, and it says a 50-foot public right-of-way.
Right.
With a 20-foot asphalt.
Mm-hmm.
What's a travel lane width?
It would be 10 feet plus portion of the valley gutter. So
The problem is these homes are, usually have more cars than can be accommodated in the driveway, so they normally park within the travel lane. Typically, if you drive around, this is a comment, and what I've run into throughout the county is if you don't have a wider asphalt travel lane and you have cars parked, you can't get emergency vehicles down the road. So is that something the Planning Commission would consider?
Matthew, I'm assuming they are designing based on our highway department's standards.
That's correct. So if we wanted to require a different road width based on a concern of that nature, we would need to amend our subdivision regulations to address that. Because currently we provide them with a standard which gets reviewed by the highway department, and we've been, highway departments have certified that they've essentially met that standard in this design.
Can we look at that then,
Absolutely.
possibly?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the engineer?
David, with this kind of pending question about this oil or gas wellhead here, would you be comfortable tabling this for 30 days for us to get a bit more clear answer on that?
not with the zoning vote coming in. Number one, I'm not convinced there is one there. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with him, but we can certainly find out if it's there. And honestly, the only thing's going to happen is we would probably have less lots by pulling the cul-de-sac back, if in fact it's where he claims
I guess it would potentially change the design of the neighborhood.
less lots, which
Well,
normally we can do administratively.
And well, if this is approved, he still has to obey any state, federal, or regulatory rules that there
probably
are
answers my
for construction and build. So say that there's an ADEM rule about cap wells, or a federal rule, under the court or somewhere like that, about cap wells, then whatever permit would be necessary in order to build in that area, do construction, they would have to get that first before they could then get the final approval from us as the county commission for final plat and things like that. So, we're only able to do what we can do here on the subdivision regulation part of it. And then, if whatever that may fall under, he would have to get the permits, or the developer would have to get those permits in order to proceed. And that's in our subdivision regulation, that language.
If I could ask the question, David, how long do you think, I have no idea, to even evaluate what is there and what's required, if something is there?
Well, hopefully the environmental consultant will be able to verify, first of all, that that's there.
and then tell us what kind of remediation options are available.
Aaron, let me ask you this. Could we add like a 90-day contingency that they just provide us a letter, either verifying that it doesn't exist or it does exist and what permits will be associated with that? Because we do have a subdivision regulation that requires them to get all local, state, and federal permits. And then we just know, instead of it just that question floating out there, we can pass that on to Highway Department, who will then make sure those permits are received before they issue a subdivision permit. Y'all see any issue with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have to go to the highway department now with full detailed plans, so it'll give another opportunity.
Mr. Chairman? Was staff aware of this oil and gas capped well before tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes.
For Mr. Deal?
I have one more, sorry. And under the boxes that we consider, one of them is finding out new information that we didn't know previously.
It would still have to be information that would uncheck a box that's a requirement. And the only way that there will be an additional requirement here, and that will arguably be in the next set of permits they're required to get through the construction permits with Highway Department, would be any other state and federal permits. They're not required to have those today, but they'll be required to have them before that next approval is given. So we just need to know what those other state and federal permits are, which you could add that as a contingency that they'll provide a letter stating what, if any, other permits will be required. It's a pretty unique situation.
Well, all of our subdivisions have that statement. It's just that in this case, we have been told we know now there may be, well, we assume there's going to be a well they're going to have to check in, but they would have had to do that. It's just we've been made aware of it, so they will have to check on that one. All right, any other questions? Okay, Mr. Deal, you had somebody else?
Drainage?
Hey, Jared Landry, SE Civil. Mr. Pumphrey briefly touched on this, but we're aware of all the drainage going to the north. And for the 100-year, we've reduced the drainage roughly 30% to the north. So we'll continue to look at this and over-detain and design as we work with Tyler at the Highway Department.
Okay. All right, any questions for the engineer? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
That is all I have signed up, unless, David, anybody else in your group need to speak? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. Ms. Mister, you need to add anything?
I just want to point out, if you look at the plat, this is the easement that that he's referring to that gets to that neighbor's property. So that has been shown on here, and so the subdivision does not encroach on that. At least the lots don't.
Okay. Any questions for staff or any comments that we need to discuss prior to a motion?
I have one question. On the sewer, Fairhope Utilities is going to treat this sewage. Where will they treat that? And is it going to require infrastructure upgrades to that?
And in the letter, it says Fairhope Public Utilities is willing to provide sewer service, and the developer shall be responsible for all infrastructure requirements. I'm looking in the letter to see. It will include upsizing, what's the water mean? I apologize, I've got a block on top of it, so I can't.
Commissioners, I can tell you that their wastewater treatment plant is on the west side of South Section Street, very near City Hall.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table this issue. It seems to me that there's just a number of questions here that are unanswered, and while, yes, we can extend the time to give them a chance to do that, we are really pushing several issues down the road and hoping they get taken care of. And I know that the developers certainly want to move forward on this, but I would move that we table it for 30 days.
Can you be specific in your motion as to what I think that one of the things we've talked about is being very clear about what you're asking them to bring back if we're going to table it?
Okay,
And
well,
I would say how that might relate to what we can use in our decision-making process.
Well, I would suggest that if there's a well capped out there that's going to, that could potentially have poisonous gas coming out of it that would require some type of response on a very broad level, I think that is certainly within the purview of the health and welfare of the community.
I'm not going to fight for them in this case. I don't want it to sound that way. I just want to be clear that we understand that that is a permit they have to get prior to doing any construction. It's not something I need, really. It's something that staff will have to approve before they release him, give him his subdivision permit to construct. And I personally am good with that, but again, I don't want to be it's just like any ADM permit. We don't expect them to give that to us the night of the meeting. They have to get that prior to getting a subdivision permit. I see this as falling under that same umbrella, but what if you want to make that motion, that's fine, Ben.
Fine, I'll back away from it then.
Well, I think it's fine to make the motion, just make sure that we say the additional information, and then y'all tie it in to by a certain meeting, you know, like a February, March, or whatever meeting you want to have it go to, if you're going to make the motion.
Well, the fact that staff was not aware of this till this evening, the fact that the neighbor is the one who's bringing it up, I think it's something of concern, and I understand what you're saying about they have to get a permit for it, but if something were to go wrong, are we potentially putting ourselves in jeopardy by not knowing what that is until they get that permit or until something were to happen? And again, I appreciate the position this has put the developer in, but it just seems that there are a number of questions, particularly as it relates to that wellhead and it being capped and where it is and what the potential is for danger there. I will move that we table the motion.
Until, I think Aaron's asked for a time frame. How far are you tabling it to?
I would say how long do you think it would take you to get this information? And come up
honestly,
with a solution if
it's the first unknown
necessary.
wellhead I've run across in 35 years, so I don't know how long it takes to figure it out.
Well, would you if we said perhaps our March meeting? I mean, I'm not trying to be unreasonable here at all.
No, sir.
If you can get it by February, that's great, but if you don't know.
Can we have that option just once we get the information? Let's say we find out there's not a wellhead there. There's no reason we couldn't come back the next meeting. You know, there could be mistake about the location of it or existence of it.
I just think that what is.
Yeah, I think Matthew had a good idea. So we could say February, and then if he can't get it by then, we could maybe voluntarily table it until March if you let us know that you're not able to get it. But either way on a table, we're going to have to come back because we're going to have a vote on the plat application.
Okay.
Because we're not, their vote, if they vote to table it, then it's not like we're granting it with a condition. We're actually not even voting on the application.
Right.
So that's the difference.
Okay.
Well, I'm totally fine to say that we'll postpone or table it until the February meeting in my motion. I may not even have a second to the motion, but that would be the motion, that we would table that until that time.
All right, Bill has made a motion to table this until the February meeting. Do you have a second? No, sir. The public hearing is closed. Do I have a second on this?
I'll second that.
All right, motion's been seconded. Mr. Fletcher, all right. Any questions, comments on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're going to need to do a roll call.
Mr. Bias?
No.
Mr. Davis?
No.
Mr. Paget?
No.
Mr. Mullick?
Yes.
Mr. Siebert?
No.
Mr. Boer?
Yes.
Ms. Stratiger?
Yes.
Mr. McKenzie?
Yes.
Ms. Teal?
Yes.
Ms. Burnett?
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher? Okay, the motion to table carried.
Okay. All right, we'll move into our commission site plan approvals at this time. We'll open public hearing for case number CSP 22-34, County Road 49, Dollar General. Does anybody need to clear any prior communication on this item? Mr. King?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is the first of two very similar commission site plans, as you see there on screen. And so the request is to construct a discount variety store exceeding 8,000 square feet, located at the location you see on your screen right here. Here's a sample from this is a sample out of the use table out of the zoning ordinance, which indicates that this triggers a commission site plan. And Mr. Chairman, for the sake of brevity, and since we've all been in this room for 4.5 hours, we'll try to go through this kind of quickly. This is a routine request. So let's go through the major items that we look at on these types of developments. This does not trigger traffic study, as this is a single use and a single tenant. Drainage was evaluated successfully and approved by our colleagues at Baldwin County Highway Department. It is in conformance with both the zoning ordinance and the local provisions of Planning District 35. ALDOT is not applicable because there are no ALDOT roads where there's turnout on this project. The 8M NPDES was furnished. Landscape buffers, we'll describe that in greater detail. They are adequate. Corps of Engineers is inapplicable here. There are no wetlands or potential wetlands on this property. We do have a turnout permit that was submitted and approved by the Baldwin County Highway Department. And so, as we know in looking at our zoning map, this area is in, as you see, the planning district where it's located. And then we're going to call out here in Planning District 21 the approximate location of the facility. And here's your adjacent property photos. Aerial image of the site. And Commissioners, we'll get into this when we get into the conditions of approval. There's a pending subdivision on this site. So this commission site plan is requesting approval for just one of the lots within the pending subdivision. We'll explain that in greater detail in the conditions of approval. You'll notice the zoning map, that area of that lot that will be created by the subdivision is Zone B2, as you see called out here. And what we're calling out here for you, Commissioners, is just noting that this is Lot 1 out of that subdivision, which was approved in September. It's not yet recorded, but that is pending. And we'll just note here very quickly that there was a wetland area on Lot 2. Does not affect this application here. Commissioners, what I'll do and what I'd like to do is skip ahead a bit to skip over some of the items in your staff report that we can address if there are questions. Skip forward here to show you the floor plan of the store. This will be a Dollar General store. Show you the exterior facade. I'm going to zoom in on the exterior materials. You see they're using the hardy board material as well as faced brick. Ms. Haley with the developer is here today and can elaborate in greater detail on that. What I will note for you, Commissioners, is that this type of facade is a requirement of Planning District 35 local provisions. Also, these are some sample photos of a similar store so you can see the facade material and colors. What I would caution you, Commissioners, is just focus on the building here. This is not representative of the landscape requirements that are required by Baldwin County. And here, Commissioners, just laying out the landscape buffers. As you see, it's triggering a 25-foot landscape buffer on the west side, a 10-foot along the functional classified road, another one on the other functional classified road, and then another 25-foot landscape buffer as well. And then, Mr. Chairman, I'll show you, we're zooming in on the dumpster location and also showing you that it does connect. This is an issue we've had to address before. It does have a drainage connected to sanitary sewer, and also show you a detail of the dumpster enclosure on how it is screened, and it's highlighted there in yellow. In terms of landscaping, we'll just zoom in on those buffers from the landscape drawing, and I'll show you some samples of the overstory and understory trees that are selected for this property. Chairman, I said incorrectly a moment ago something about Planning District 35. That was incorrect. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll save that for the next case. Just showing the drainage improvements on the site. Here is the drainage narrative that was accepted by Highway. The various letters that are required to be submitted, we can answer questions on those. The utility letters that are required on a CSP, which is very similar to that of a subdivision. We won't go through all of the specifics because we put some of the items out of the zoning ordinance in your staff report. The compatibility analysis, Commissioners, I'm happy to go through that if there are questions. I think it is pretty exhaustive for your staff report. So with that, we'll go to your staff recommendation. The first 7 items are our standard conditions. Happy to answer questions on those if there are, but those are the standard conditions you see in a lot of these cases. In terms of conditions of approval unique to the site, we're just memorializing here that Magnolia 12 subdivision plat shall be recorded before we issue the formal approval letter of this commission site plan. And so that's the only condition unique to the site. I'm happy to answer questions on behalf of staff.
Okay, any questions for staff?
I have just the one. To be consistent with the letter from the utility companies, Baldwin County Sewer Services is dated in March. Can we get an updated one after August 5th of 2022?
Commissioner, we will defer to the commission and their pleasure on that. But I think we covered that. We covered a similar situation earlier that we'll certainly be happy to do that as staff if that's the will of the commission.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, bear with me a moment. Do we not have anybody signed up on this? No.
Wellhead permits.
That's the last project.
I'm sure, I'm sorry, which one is this? Which Dollar General? Is this the 49?
This 40 County Road 49.
Okay, I apologize. I just refreshed it. We just have the owner and engineer signed up.
Okay. Alyssa Haley. Sorry it took us a while to get to you.
My name's Alyssa Haley. I'm with the Broadway Group. We are the developer and the applicant for the project. I'll answer any questions y'all have. I do want to say the plat has already been recorded, and we can provide Buford you a copy of that as well.
Yes, ma'am. If you can give me the instrument number, I'd appreciate that very much.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
I do.
Oh.
I do. As you travel around Baldwin County, you see different facades.
Yes.
On, excuse me, on Dollar Generals. And I'm not a fan of a flat roof. So, and I'm really not a fan of the product, what I'm seeing here, because I think we can do a better job in our rural areas. So is there another facade that you can provide to us?
So we don't have any other facades per se, but we do have different variety of colors. I did bring some samples of different colors that we can choose from if there's something unique for this location that somebody wants to see.
What I'm thinking about is the Magnolia Springs. It has a pitched roof. It also has a different signage on the building and in front of the building. I don't know what our rules are for signs or anything like that, but I prefer the look. And I was there the other day, and I'll tell you, other people in the community love that look as well.
It is a really beautiful store.
Yes, it's a beautiful store. People coming and going all the time, and I know there's a maybe more population there. I don't think so, but maybe. But I think that this area deserves something that nice. So is that something that you would consider?
At this time, I can't promise anything like that. I would have to take that back to Mr. Broadway and go over everything. That store was very, very expensive to build and way out of our budget. So we would like to, go away from building that one again. That one was very unique. It was in the city of Magnolia Springs, and it was in the overlay district, as you remember. And there was just different requirements at the time. The sign, Dollar General has a third-party company that comes and applies for the sign permits. They always change it up on us. They might do their regular box sign, or little to no knowledge to me, they change it and put raceway letters up. So it just kind of depends on what they do. We have no control over that.
This store is smaller than that store.
It is actually the same size.
Is it? And then there's no light required here. So are you adding that expense to that store, the traffic light?
Oh, the traffic light. There won't be a traffic light, but that was a totally different expense.
So you're
from
not
the
adding
facade.
that to that cost of that building?
I mean, the whole project in general was very, very expensive, but the light alone versus the facade upgrades, and because the 10640s that we do, the one in Magnolia Springs was a completely wood building, and we don't do those at all. That actually was very special for that site plan approval with the town of Magnolia Springs. So that project as a whole was very, very expensive, and it did not include just the traffic light.
Well, I think you could probably achieve that look with a metal building. I'm not an architect, so I don't know that to be true, but I do believe this area deserves something more than what you have here. Just, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
I personally would like to see a second entrance, possibly off 49 or on 12, because I know there's a lot of congestion, especially during unloading and loading when the trucks come in. Is there any objection to possibly putting a second entrance?
We don't have the plans for that. We actually did have a traffic study done for this location, and it didn't require any extra turn lanes or any extra entrances. As you can see from the site layout, and my engineers are here and can explain a little bit more, there is an unloading and loading zone that is part of the Baldwin County zoning ordinance that we have placed on the plans. It's to the south, yeah, right there, the south side of the building. So it is away from parking and the entrance and stuff like that.
So to get in the unloading and loading zone, they're going to have to pull in the entrance. They're going to have to go up the side and then back in, which may cause conflict with people that are parked in front of the store.
It shouldn't be they shouldn't travel up too far to the entrance. The entrance is on the corner, and it shouldn't take them that long to pull in and back up. So it shouldn't prohibit any parking spots for a long period of time, like I would say less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ursula Godwin, need to say anything? Mr. Coleman? Nope. All right, that's all I had signed up. Was anybody else I missed? You failed to sign up? I'll close public hearing on this one. You need to add anything?
Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Burnett asked a very good question, and just to elaborate very, very briefly, the Magnolia Springs example is a great question, and is a great question, a great topic. But again, that is a city versus a county requirement. This planning district does not have any facade requirements. And so the facade that you see on the building is what the developer is voluntarily proposing to furnish.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Any comments before we make a motion? All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve subject to staff conditions.
Okay, Mr. Bias made a motion that we approve. Second. Mr. Padgett seconded the motion. Any questions or comments on the motion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion's approved. Okay, then we have the next Dollar General local public hearing for CSP 22-38, which is the County Road 10, 60, and 65 Dollar General. Anybody need to declare any prior communication on this item? Okay, Mr. King?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman, Commissioners. Very similar application. Very similar application to the previous application. Again, the discount variety store exceeding 8,000 square feet. This one, as you see in the vicinity map, this is very near the intersection of County Road 10, County Road 65. Again, as we talked about earlier, that type of land use triggers commission site plan. As you saw previously, this one does not trigger a traffic study in terms of this review. Now, Ms. Haley mentioned previously that there was a traffic study done. Understand that was a component of what was required to get their turnout permit. So, but this did not trigger this that we would review in terms of P&Z. But it is covered. Drainage, reviewed by Highway. We thank them for their assistance. Zoning and local provisions, we wouldn't be recommending approval if it had not met those standards. ALDOT is not applicable in this situation as well. They did give us their NPDES. We'll show you the landscape buffers are in compliance. Corps of Engineers is not applicable here. No potential wetlands. They did furnish their turnout permit, which we can answer any questions on that as well. And then this is in Planning District 35, brand new planning district. I think this is the first commission site plan that we've had in Planning District 35. There's the approximate location of the property. And because the property, similar situation, is a lot in a two-lot subdivision of a large piece of property, I'll have to narrate the photos here. This is the subject property. The area where the building will go is actually more in this area. So I just wanted to clarify that. Adjacent property to the north. Now, the adjacent property to the east, you're looking across subject property at that property to the east. Just want to be very clear there. Property to the west, here's your aerial image, the property outlined in blue. And similar to the prior situation, again, this is on one of the lots within a two-lot subdivision that we haven't seen as recorded just yet. And similarly, you see the B2 zoning is already there in place for the store. That actually came about during the development of Planning District 35. The property information, and I'm happy to answer any questions if we have on the property information. Here, again, we're showing that this is Lot 1 of that subdivision yet to be recorded. And then on Lot 1, you see that the site plan will be placed. Okay, Commissioners, I'm going to skip ahead, and then, of course, we can pause and answer any questions, but I'm going to skip ahead and show you a slightly different floor plan than the prior application. But here's your floor plan from the architectural plans. 25-foot landscape buffer on the north end, as well as the east end, and a 10-foot landscape buffer along the right-of-way. This one being adjacent to another B2 property does not trigger a landscape buffer on the west side. Here is your landscape plan, and here's some Planning District 35 items just to elaborate on just a bit. So I'm zooming in on this area right here, and what I want to illuminate for commissioners is note this fencing right here. These are the trees that are being preserved. So they're honoring the requirements of Planning District 35 local provisions. Just wanted to call that out. Here are some sample images of the different overstory and understory trees that they are going to provide for the site. These are the new plantings in addition to what's being preserved. Again, Planning District 35 is a bit more robust, so I had to actually verify that these are native to Alabama. Here's your exterior facade, similar to what we saw previously. I'm going to zoom in again, the hardy board material. Now the difference here is that this is mandated by Planning District 35. And some sample photos of similar stores in other parts of the state. And Mr. Chairman, we have the dumpster enclosure. And zooming in on the dumpster enclosure. And then with that, Commissioners, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip ahead. The other data is in there that's in your staff report. And so I'll treat it very similarly. Similar to the last case. We'll skip ahead to the staff recommendation. And again, items 1 through 7 are your standard conditions of approval. Mr. Chairman, items 8 and 9 are unique to this site. 8, again, addresses the matter of recording that subdivision. And number 9, what we wanted to do is just make it very clear. Planning District 35 requires that developments install sidewalks. What we're making very clear is that making very clear that we're memorializing that sidewalk is on private property. It's not maintained by Baldwin County. Commissioners, item 10 has already been cured, so I am striking through that condition of approval. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Buford, that's very close to a major intersection. There was no traffic study provided there?
So, Commissioner, that's a great question, and Mr. Chairman, that's another opportunity to bring that up. So this is where we defer to, and I didn't show this previously, before you and what is on screen is the turnout permit. And so many turnout permits do trigger a traffic study in order to obtain the turnout permit. So in this situation right here, we rely on the good wisdom of the Highway Department to evaluate that intersection, and that whatever improvements they require has to be installed before they are granted a turnout permit.
And we do have a member of the Highway Department here, and you can ask any questions of them as well if you'd like.
Exactly. I defer to Tyler.
Any other questions? Or do you might want to ask Tyler a question? You're welcome to do that. Okay.
Excuse me, I have a question. Again, just to be consistent, can we get a letter dated after August 5th?
And I will defer to the commission on that item if you wish to condition that approval.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it, Jamie.
I asked for another letter to be dated after August 5th from Baldwin County Sewer Service.
Okay. All right. If no other questions, we have 3. Ms. Bailey, you want to, or Ms. Haley, you want to speak again? Is Mr. Godwin and Mr. Coleman just going to sit there and let you do all the work?
So very similar to the last project, there was a traffic study done as part of the turnout permit and no improvements were needed. I'll answer any questions y'all will have. Similar upgrades, we can change the colors if you want. Yeah, any questions?
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Haley?
I do.
Okay.
The only reason I didn't mention Gulf Shores or Orange Beach, but they have different, and I know they're in municipalities, but I still think we need to do a better job. So thank you very much.
I would agree with that.
And we can, you know how Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, they have the 2 different colors, especially the new one on 59 close to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you would like to see? I know there's towers and different things like that, and that's not in the scope of the budget, but I didn't know if colors, different colors where it's not the standard beige color would.
That would be helpful, but it's the flat roof. You know, that it's not interesting. It's not, in these Dollar Generals, I value. I really think they support a community. They're going to be around 20, 30 years, and there's no reason that they can't be a cornerstone and a leader in the community.
We can take all feedback back to Mr. Broadway and discuss it.
Well, please do. I think the community would appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Either of you guys need to say anything? Okay. Anybody else that I did not give you opportunity, didn't sign up? You didn't sign up, you want to speak to this? All right. Give us your name. Give us your name and address up at the podium, please. Well, you need to come to the podium first because you have to be at the mic.
Well, the recording can't hear you if it's not spoken into the mic.
Narisa Nelson, 6777 Bonsecure Highway, right around the corner from this. I'm kind of confused, Buford, right at the moment because the site that you gave us a picture of is not on County Road 10. That's on County Road 65. So I'm confused as to, is this going on 65 over here, or is it going on 10 over here?
So that's a great question, Mr. Chairman, and let me go back to our aerial image. So what you have is that piece of property is large enough that it fronts on both roads, but the store will go right here. So the store will actually front on County Road 10.
Okay, so that's not the picture we had. We had the picture looking from 65 back to the east.
Yes, ma'am, and that's
toward
why
the Taylor's house, okay.
And that's why I narrated those adjacent property photos to explain that.
Okay, and are there two turnouts on this piece of property? Then if they abut both roads, are there going to be a turnout or a turn in on County Road 10, and is there going to be a turn in on County Road 65?
This is your turnout right here.
Just on 10?
That's the only one requested.
Okay, anything else?
And there's 5,000 cars that go through that intersection one way in a day, and that didn't trigger any kind of traffic study or anything?
And so, Mr. Chairman, as we described earlier, and as Ms. Haley described, that a product and part of the process of obtaining the turnout permit was submitting a traffic study to the Highway Department. This document right here would not have been granted without approval by the Highway Department, and had they not had the data to approve it.
Okay. And I agree with y'all. It would be nice for something to look nicer than just a flat crap hole like the rest of them look like. I have a question too, maybe to this lady back here.
We do need to make sure that you do need to address the, addressing the planning.
Yeah, please address the chairman.
Yes, I have a question for the lady who was representing the owners or the developer.
Ask me the question, and I'll try to get her to answer it for you.
Okay, I'll ask you the question. We have a Dollar General a mile away from this on County Road 65, and we have it another mile away on Highway 59 right there, maybe a little bit more than a mile on that way. They are both eyesores, and we're trying our best to clean up our properties up there next to these properties on 65 especially. And I'm wondering who actually makes sure that these things don't become the eyesores that the other two already are?
Okay. Matthew, is that even, at this point, I'm not sure that's...
Because this is a zoned area, these approvals are conditional or site plan specific approvals, and if at any point they allow the site to become such a nuisance such that it essentially changes its use, there's an argument we could step in. But just because the building becomes old, which there are other old buildings in District 35,
These aren't
which you're
old
well
buildings
aware,
I'm talking about.
that we can't regulate something just because it gets
Well,
old.
these buildings are buildings that have grass up around them this high and up in the ditches and up and around, and their retaining pond, I don't even know if it can retain anymore. It's so full. And that's the one on 65 I'm speaking about specifically. Now, the one up on 59, I don't know if that's in the Foley Planning District or what.
Well, what I would suggest is go ahead and submit a complaint to our department, and we'll look into what our options are on those.
Okay. I just want to make sure it doesn't happen again, because we've got enough of these holes around that we don't need another one. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm closing the public hearing. Any other questions, comments? Mr. King, you need to say anything?
Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, I put on screen and zoomed in the commercial building facade requirements. Now, that is the local provision within Planning District 35. And obviously, this application is in compliance with that requirement, or we would not be recommending approval.
Yeah. All right, any questions or comments before motion?
Well, I do. I've got a question for the traffic studies. Now, is that a static count of cars that goes through? Is there a study? I mean, is it done for the future? Are we accounting for the future with all the developments coming in, or is it done just right now?
Are you directing that question to our highway department?
I am.
Great.
Tyler has his microphone turned on.
I didn't think you could answer that.
So that's a good question. They do look into the current counts on those roads. They take the current counts, look at the growth patterns in the area, apply a growth factor, and then look at it for build out for the development. So they can apply that growth factor on the current traffic, couple that with the traffic that's going to come from the development, and that's how they analyze the traffic and determine any kind of improvements that may be required.
So they do some type of projection for the future?
That is correct.
How far?
Usually it's around to the build out. I can give you a better case for like a subdivision when it's built out 2 to 3 years down the road. That's how far we make them project out. In this case, it's usually just the build out of that particular development.
2-3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
We approve it.
Okay. Mr. Patches made a motion to approve, subject to the conditions by staff.
Second.
Who was that? Was that Bill?
Yeah.
We're getting so many up here, it's hard for me to see everybody. All right, Bill, second the motion. Do you have any comments or questions on the motion?
Steve, do we need to specify a letter from the sewer people dated according to Ms. Strettinger's, requirement to be consistent? Because I think we omitted that from the last approval.
I'm gonna look.
You can add that to the motion. Have it updated.
All right.
We
You good with that,
didn't
Bill?
specify it on the last motion.
Yeah, I will accept that.
Okay. All right, so the motion is to approve subject to staff conditions with the addition of a letter updated from August. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion approved. All right, our last case is, we're going to open public hearing for case CSP 22-39, the Lazary property. Does anybody need to declare any prior communication on this item? Okay. Ms. Rhodes?
All right. This one? Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm pleased to present CSP 22, Lazary Storage. It is located in Planning District 15, and you can see from the call out that this is the proposed location of the storage facility. It is zoned RA. The subject property is located south of County Road 64 and west of Loxley Heights Drive in Loxley. It's about 9.7 acres. The applicant is Lieb Engineering, and the owner is Victor Lazary. The applicant's request is to construct 3 enclosed buildings totaling 33,699 square feet for boat and RV storage. Here's the locator map and the site map highlighting the subject property. You can see to the north and to the east, the adjacent land use is agricultural. To the south is residential, and to the west is vacant. The adjacent zoning is RA to the north and to the east, and to the south it's zoned RSFE. Now, these are some images that are not in your current staff report. It's been updated recently. These are for example purposes only, just highlighting the different types of storage facilities. So the first one is a boat and RV storage. The second image here on the right would be an image of a mini warehouse, an office warehouse on the left, and finally a warehouse. These are the property images, the subject property, and the property to the east, to the west, and across the street. These are the zoning requirements for RA, as well as the zoning requirements for mini warehouses and boat and RV storage facilities. This is the site plan and the data table. This is showing you the 3 proposed storage facilities for the boats and RVs. And also what's highlighted in the data table meets the RA setbacks. Additional information, what you see highlighted kind of in purple are the required number of parking spaces for mini warehouses, which is 4. And then they will have 6 LED area lights surrounding the proposed storage facilities. The elevation. Per the applicant, the number of storage units per building will be 12, so it'll be 36 storage units in total. The building height, as well as the brick facade for the proposed storage facility fronting County Road 64. Meets all the requirements. This is the grading, drainage, and erosion control plans, as well as the drainage narrative. The highway department's review of the turnout is memorialized in the conditions of approval. They've also received their ADEM permit. And then this is an updated landscape plan showing you the 30-foot landscape buffer to the east and west because it borders residential, the 8-foot wooden fence with security gates, and then the required canopy trees, understory trees, and shrubs surrounding the perimeter of the subject property. And then I have the types of trees that will be within the landscape buffers. Agency comments. And like I mentioned before, the proposed storage facilities do conform to the requirements of the zoning ordinance, and the site plan does meet the zoning setbacks for RA. And the subject property and nearby properties to the north, east, and west are zoned RA. And for this type of use, we would have a mini warehouse that can be allowed. This is according to section 1314-2B. Also, the subject property is located on County Road 64, which is classified as a minor arterial road, and we would see a storage facility on this type of road. So with that, staff recommends approval of the request for 3 enclosed buildings totaling 33,699 square feet for boat and RV storage with the conditions listed below, which is the acquisition of the turnout permit from the highway department, which is in progress, to memorialize within this approval that this is to approve a mini warehouse only with the ability to include boat and RV storage. This is not for a planned unit development. And then finally, memorializing the closeout requirements of section 18.9.7. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
I have one. I understand that they're going to have significant lighting and that's their security, but since it's in the residential and rural area, can we ask that it's shielded from the adjoining properties and only focus in that direction? Thanks.
And this is a requirement within the zoning ordinance.
Is all the surface impervious surrounding the buildings, or is there some gravel? I can't tell by this drawing.
Yeah, if you look at the site data, and I apologize that it's very small, it shows you right here, number 7, impervious surface, and it gives you the percentages of asphalt, building coverage, et cetera.
Okay. I just couldn't tell. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for staff?
A building of this size is going to have to have some type of fire protection. Is there no letter from the local fire department that states that it can be provided, or the local utility provider?
No, sir. Right.
So let me just say that to the extent that it's required, it will be required as part of the building permitting process.
Okay.
And, if they can't get past that, then this will expire.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Got anybody signed up? I know Chris is here. Chris, do you want to come on up? Do you have anything you need to say?
No, sir. Any questions?
You sat here all night and you don't want to say anything?
We also
I always feel for the guy that has it his last on the agenda and he's waiting for this final moment. Yeah, okay. I hear you.
We also have the owner, Mr. Lazary, here, and then we have Mr. Avera signed up in opposition, and Ms. Franklin signed up as neutral.
Okay. Who was in opposition? I'm sorry.
Mr. Avera.
Mr. Avera, you want to speak? Yeah, you want. Okay.
Ronald Avera, and then LaDonna Franklin.
Good evening.
I just have a couple of questions. According to the adjacent property, which is Loxley Heights Drive, how does that affect the residents that live over in that area as far as the property taxes are concerned?
So, nothing that, in terms of a change of use on this parcel itself will impact the property taxes of the surrounding parcels, because those are just based on their, whatever use they have or, and the valuation that comes from those uses.
And will that area still be residential?
That's right. Our zoning does not impact the residential designation. The fact that we allow a storage unit here won't change how the taxes are assessed on your property or on a neighboring property. If it's currently residential, it will continue to be residential tax.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, is there anyone else that didn't sign up or did sign up that we missed that would like to speak to this? Okay. I'll close the public hearing then. Ms.
I
Mitchell.
have one more question on the lighting. Is there any delineation on how these lights are oriented? Maybe they're downward facing, or do they give any description as to how they're going to light this complex? Other than the 6 big LED, if I get that right. It said 18 to 20 feet off the ground. I'm assuming they'll be pointed
They'll be
downward.
facing down towards the storage units.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve on staff recommendations.
Okay, Mr. McKenzie's made a motion, we approve, subject to staff conditions.
Seconded.
Greg has seconded the motion. Are there any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Sorry about that.
Motion carries. All right, is there any new business that we did not cover, need to cover? I don't have anything on the list here. Any public comments? Okay. Matthew, staff reports?
The only thing, I'm not going to put you on the spot with this today, but thank you for the early work session, and we will be getting in touch with y'all to ask about possible date for a special meeting just to address the guide to growth approval. I anticipate early February, and so we'll be back in touch asking for some possible dates and times on that.
Okay. That's it. All right, legal counsel. That's you.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. I don't have anything to say. I hope everybody had a nice holiday, and it's good to jump back into 2023 now.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to say one thing. Buford really upped the ante on presentations tonight with digital pictures of the landscaping. I'd be disappointed if we don't see more of that in the future. Just saying, nice job, Buford, for making everybody look bad.
It's like Pixar up in here, you know?
So, Commissioners, full disclosure that those images are actually furnished by the Department of Forestry at Texas A&M, and it actually was Matthew that identified those. But, you know, it was actually Matthew that identified that source. But South Texas, a lot of their native plants are very similar to those of South Alabama, so that's a good resource. And sometimes, you know, and knowing that landscape buffers are an item that we get a lot of questions about, I thought it would be a good idea to provide some color photos, some color examples.
Yeah. Again, thank you to all the staff. I know you guys worked all day long. I feel like I have. Again, Diane, glad to have you on board. And we are getting quite a few folks up here, but that's good input tonight, and appreciate everybody. And our next meeting will be February 2nd, and we are adjourned.